I didn't expect the email. It came at 5:18 a.m., just as I was finishing a Q2 forecast. No one requested, but everyone relied on. Subject celebration weekend. Private flight itinerary attached. The body was brief. You've been doing outstanding work. The CEO would like to thank you personally. Please pack for 3 days, business casual to semi-formal. No explanation. Just a PDF ticket to Jackson Hole and a note from corporate affairs. I blinked at the screen. I'd been with Dover Axis for 6 years. Started as a data contractor. Built our predictive systems from scratch during a budget freeze. Took us from Excel macros to a full-stack platform that served 38 Fortune 500 clients. But no one had ever said thank you until now. My name is Tessa Lynn, and I don't like surprises, especially the kind that start with champagne and end in quiet betrayal. The jet was pristine and impersonal, like a private hospital pretending to be a party. I sat near the back, sipping citrus water, while the flight attendant offered compliments that sounded scripted. Across from me sat CEO Nathaniel Barron, a man with a 6-figure watch and a 3-second smile. His wife scrolled her phone uninterested. Next to her sat their daughter, Chloe, 21. Designer sunglasses indoors. Didn't look up once. The same Chloe who had recently posted that jobs are for people who stopped dreaming. Now she was sitting next to me on a jet with my company's logo. The Jackson Resort didn't show up on Google. Heated floors, firelit chalets, and a handwritten card waiting in my suite. We're proud of you. Let's toast to the future. NB. For a moment, I believed it. That maybe they saw me, not just my output. That night, the Barons hosted a private dinner in the main lodge. 10 people. All executive leadership. I wore the navy silk dress I hadn't touched in years. Nathaniel stood when I entered, smiling wide. "Tessa," he said warmly, "come sit right here next to Chloe." I smiled. Polite. But my stomach tightened. I already knew what was coming, and they had no idea what was coming next. Chloe talked about her TikTok followers like she'd earned an MBA in innovation. Her voice filled the room as if metrics and memes were strategy. Then Nathaniel raised his glass and cleared his throat. "We're here tonight not just to honor the work Tessa's done," he said, eyes sliding toward me, "but to toast where we're headed." He turned, fully smiling like it was scripted. "You've been remarkable. You carried Dover Axis through tough quarters." I nodded slightly, already bracing. "But the world is changing," he continued, "and we're evolving too. That's why starting next quarter, Chloe will step in as Executive Vision Officer." The room went quiet. He said it like he was handing me a thank you card, not a pink slip. But I felt it in my chest. "She's the future," he added. "And you, Tessa? Well, you've laid a strong foundation." He lifted his glass. "To new energy." I raised mine too. Calm, collected. To the future. Because what no one in that room remembered was that 5 years ago, I negotiated a clause. Buried deep in legalese, overlooked by everyone but me, it granted me 3.2% equity convertible and with full voting rights. In exchange for a proprietary analytics engine I'd built when the company had zero budget. Nathaniel signed it himself. I still had the PDF and archived email thread. Back then, I was just Tessa from Ops. And that's exactly how I liked it. After dinner, I stayed by the fire as the others drifted out. Chloe smirked on her way past. "Don't worry," she said, smug. "I'll make sure the interns loop you in." I said nothing. I didn't need to. Because she didn't understand, none of them did, that leadership isn't about buzzwords. It's about what holds the system together when the shine fades. And I built this one. The real celebration hadn't started yet. I flew home Sunday evening. No driver, no thank you. Just a text from Chloe. "Forward me your files. We'll set up handoff next week." Like I was an assistant. Like 6 years of work could be boxed and deleted. I didn't reply. I stared out the plane window. Sometimes silence is the loudest answer. Ryan from product gave me a small nod as I passed. Elise from legal avoided eye contact. I made my way to my office, still mine for now, and sat at the desk where I once mapped our first data model on a napkin. I opened my laptop. Credentials still worked, no lockout, not yet. But my inbox was changing. Chloe had forwarded an email thread subject line, Brand Refresh Strategy Phase 1. It was stuffed with buzzwords, authenticity, disruption, visioneering, but nothing about clients. No reference to the analytics platform I built. No clue how any of it functioned under the hood. I opened a folder labeled Legacy Core. Inside, everything they forgot I still had. Back in 2019, Dover Axis was close to collapse. No budget for outside vendors. I built our dashboard system from scratch, under one condition: a small stake if it proved viable. Nathaniel agreed. Typed it himself. 3.2% Class B equity voting rights included. I still had the signed PDF. It wasn't hidden in legalese. It was bold dated and enforceable. At the time, I treated it as symbolic, a thank you, but after our Series B, it became real value. While Chloe was still posting TikTok tutorials, I was stabilizing revenue through COVID. And now, they were trying to erase me like dry erase marker on a glass wall. I spent the rest of Monday quietly backing up documentation, not to sue, but to prepare. Then I forwarded an email to our general counsel. Subject shareholder voting protocols, body per my 2% Class B shares granted in 2019 attached. Please confirm voting procedures if strategic leadership shifts occur without board resolution. Reply came 47 minutes later. Thanks for flagging, Tessa. Reviewing now. That's when I knew they'd forgotten. If they hadn't, legal would have blocked me before I ever sat down. Tuesday morning, Chloe strolled in like she owned the floor. She perched on my desk, voice too bright. Planning a vision workshop for Friday, she chirped. We'll review what you built and where I'm taking it next. Sounds productive? I said, sipping coffee. She smiled wider. I'm also restructuring teams. We need fresh energy. I smiled back. Calm. I already had my plan. Younger energy, more agile, Chloe said, spinning in my chair like she owned the place. No offense, but I think some people here are stuck in their ways. I nodded once. You don't agree? She asked, her eyes narrowing. If you want to see what happens next and how quiet strength reshapes the future, make sure you're subscribed. The next chapter is already unfolding. I think foundations matter, I said quietly. You can't remodel the house if you don't understand how the plumbing works. She rolled her eyes and smiled. I guess we'll see. We would. Later that day, HR sent over a transition outline. No demotion. Just gentle phrasing about mentorship, brand realignment, and stepping back from day-to-day strategy. It read like a promotion, but I knew exactly what it was. They wanted me to fade out, quietly, without disruption. By Wednesday, I'd seen enough. Chloe unveiled a new UI design to the dev team without consulting a single person who'd built our infrastructure. The wireframes were bright, the layout was broken, the logic made no sense. But everyone nodded because her last name was Barron. That night, with the skyline glowing outside my apartment window, I opened a folder on my desktop. Leverage, Phase 1. Inside, the signed equity agreement. The original system architecture with full timestamps. An internal audit confirming 99.3% uptime over 4 years. I wasn't looking to burn anything down. But I wasn't going to let them erase me either. They flew me to Wyoming to celebrate my work. What they didn't realize was I was the work. Every metric, every integration, every client retention strategy had my fingerprint on it. I didn't need a seat at the table. I owned part of the floor it stood on. Thursday morning was quiet. Too quiet. No new meetings, no Slack pings, no updates from leadership. It wasn't peace. It was prelude. The kind of silence that comes before something shifts for good. I walked into Dover Axis like I always did. Neutral blouse, black coffee composed. Chloe was in my office. Again, feet on the desk, earbuds in, laptop glowing with a Canva deck labeled Core 2.0, Reimagine Everything. Stock photos, buzzwords, smiling interns and slogans like Tomorrow Starts Here. She didn't look up. Need something? She asked. I smiled. Just watching the plumbing. I smiled calmly, just grabbing my charger. Oh, Chloe said like I was maintenance. Check the drawer. No mention of the system migration she'd announced yesterday. No concern for client continuity, legacy data, or the infrastructure still humming behind the scenes. She really believed a rebrand and some buzzwords could replace years of engineering. She thought legacy meant obsolete. She didn't realize it meant built to last. Back at my desk, Ryan leaned in. "You see the ops memo?" "No," I said. He handed me a printed sheet. Her first real executive decision. It was a restructure notice support would now report to product. And most alarming, a proposal to outsource back-end infrastructure. My chest tightened. That system was our promise. Dover Axis didn't win clients with pretty dashboards. We kept them because we made the impossible run like clockwork. "She wants to shift back-end to a Toronto vendor," Ryan said. "Half the cost." "And compatibility?" I asked. He shook his head. "Didn't check. They'll break the pipeline." "They already have." A finance client called this morning. Reports aren't syncing. "I think she ran a live migration test." My stomach dropped. "That violates every protocol." He nodded grimly. "I know." That afternoon I did what I do best, quiet, methodical prep. I pulled system logs, pulled uptime reports, screenshots, internal notes. Then I opened a new email, not to Chloe, not to Nathaniel, to the board. Subject: operational risk and transition oversight attached. Proof of a live system migration that disrupted client data. Slack messages with Chloe's undocumented approval. A vendor compliance memo from 2021 showing they failed audit standards. No emotion, no opinions, just the facts. I hit send at 5:42 p.m., then I packed up and left the building. At 7:03 p.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Tessa, a woman, said. "This is Carolyn Wu, chair of Dover Axis's board." Her voice was calm, firm. "We need to speak first thing tomorrow." "Of course," I said, steady. "And Tessa," she added, "thank you for flagging this." I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. But I knew then they finally saw what Chloe never could. I answered anyway. "Tessa, this is Caroline Wu, chair of Dover Axis's board." Her voice was steady, measured. "I'd like to set up a call first thing tomorrow." "Of course," I replied, calm but alert. "And Tessa," she added, "thank you for flagging this." She already knew. They all had. But until now, they hadn't had proof. Friday's all-hands meeting unfolded like nothing was wrong. Chloe stood center stage, full TED Talk mode, introducing new colors, new values, and a fresh slogan, "Where legacy ends, the future begins." I almost laughed. The irony. The system feeding her demo still mine. She didn't even know how to check status logs. She couldn't tell real-time metrics from placeholders. And I knew that because I'd built the flags to catch fake data. I watched one blink red mid-presentation. After the meeting, she sauntered over. "You seemed quiet today," she said with a grin too wide to trust. "Don't worry, we'll find something that fits your skill set eventually." I said nothing, because behind her, walking calmly down the corridor in a navy suit, was Caroline Wu. She paused beside us. "Tessa, may I borrow you for a moment?" Chloe turned, her smile slipping. I stood, nodded once, and followed Caroline. We sat in a quiet conference room, curtains, drawn lights soft. Caroline opened a thin folder. "Everything you submitted checked out. You've held this company together far longer than anyone credited." I stayed silent. I didn't need to speak. "We're calling an emergency executive session next week," she said. "I want you in the room. You'll brief the board directly." I exhaled slowly. It wasn't victory. It wasn't revenge. It was something deeper: recognition. Monday arrived colder than usual, not outside but inside the building. The air had shifted. People avoided eye contact. The usual morning banter was gone. No jokes about Chloe's slogans. No loud greetings. Only cautious silence. I arrived early as always, and this time I didn't feel erased. I felt watched. Not with suspicion, with awareness. They were starting to realize who had really kept the lights on all this time. Ryan was already at his desk. He gave me a small nod, the kind people give before a storm breaks. On mine sat a sealed envelope. No return name, just cream stock paper with a Dover Axis letterhead. Invitation to executive session, Confidential. Tuesday, 10:00 a.m., Boardroom 3B. Attendees, Board of Directors, Legal Counsel, Tessa Lynn. Interim Advisory Oversight, Provisional, no Chloe, no Nathaniel. The rest of Monday moved in slow motion. Around 11:30, Chloe walked past my desk phone, pressed to her ear, eyes darting. She wasn't smiling anymore. By noon, she'd called a closed-door alignment sync with all department heads. I wasn't invited. Neither was Caroline. But Ryan was. He returned 40 minutes later and sat down at my desk with the expression of someone trying not to show panic. "She's scrambling," he whispered. "Said anyone resisting the restructure is blocking innovation." She even floated, replacing the entire infrastructure team. I blinked. She doesn't realize half that team built the infrastructure. He nodded. And now she's talking about hiring an external branding firm. High cost, immediate rollout. They're burning capital, I said flatly, and she has no idea the board can see the rate. She thinks she has time. She doesn't. That afternoon, I met with Caroline on the 18th floor. No small talk, just her a black pen and a notepad. "We'll start the session with a review of Chloe's decisions over the last 30 days, she said. "I want you to walk the board through a factual timeline. No spin. Client impact protocol breaches budget warnings," I asked. She nodded. "No personal commentary." "We let the data speak," Caroline said. "We're not here to humiliate her. We're here to protect what's still standing." I looked out the window for a long moment. "Then I'll show them the truth," I said quietly. She didn't smile, just closed her notebook. They're ready to listen now. For the first time in weeks, I believed it. They weren't just reacting to noise. They were finally watching the signal. "I understand," Caroline said, watching me closely. "You've handled this with more grace than most executives I've seen." "Thank you," I said. But grace isn't the same as silence. The corner of her mouth twitched almost a smile. Tuesday arrived with low clouds and the weight of long overdue truth. I walked into Boardroom 3B at exactly 9:59 a.m. Caroline was already seated. Darnell from Finance, Angela from Legal. Two unfamiliar faces, external advisors, I guessed. Nathaniel walked in, 5 minutes late, shoulders, stiff face, pale. He sat at the far end, silent. Chloe didn't show. Caroline opened the session calmly. "We're here to evaluate recent leadership transitions and their impact on operational continuity. Ms. Lynn has provided documentation." I stood and connected my laptop. No speech, no emotion, just cause and effect. Live migration without protocol, client service disruption, unauthorized outsourcing to flagged vendor, projected Q3 budget overages from rebranding, decline in morale confirmed by HR's own pulse survey. I closed my laptop and stepped back. Silence. Then Daniel Renier, a Tech Partners CEO, leaned forward. "Ms. Lynn, were you aware that Chloe requested full transition control in our upcoming integration talks?" I glanced at Caroline, then back at Daniel. "I am now." She submitted a pitch recommending a full replacement of legacy systems, he said. "No mention of authorship or maintenance." "That's a serious omission," I replied. Daniel nodded. It was noted. After the meeting, I crossed paths with Nathaniel in the hallway. He looked older than I remembered. "I never meant for it to get this far," he said. "You didn't stop it either," I replied. He nodded slowly. "She's my daughter." "And I was your partner," I said. "You forgot that." He didn't argue. As I turned to leave, he asked quietly, "They're going to remove her, aren't they?" "That's not my call," I said, "but you should prepare her." That evening, I went home and pulled a folder from the bottom drawer of my desk. Build phase. 2019 labeled in black ink. Inside the original system diagram, I'd drawn by hand. No software, no shortcuts, just logic structure and something they'd all forgotten: foundation. It was still valid, still running, still mine. I snapped a photo of the page and saved it in a new folder: Legacy. Value. Because titles can be replaced. So can people. But the ones who build the bones and keep things alive through chaos, that's harder to erase. Wednesday morning felt different. No more whispers, just eyes. The air in the office had changed, not fearful, expectant. Every step felt careful, every word chosen. Chloe hadn't shown up. Her name was still scribbled on the whiteboard in what used to be my office, but the chair beneath it sat empty. By mid-morning, rumors were swirling. The board had frozen her transition plan. Legal had paused all strategic directives. Someone said she left the building in tears the day before. None of that came from me. I hadn't spoken a word. I didn't need to. The system was doing the talking now. At 11:00 a.m., I met Caroline in a quiet corner of the executive floor. "We've scheduled the final vote for Friday," she said, voice cool and steady, "to remove Chloe and formalize the advisory team. You have the numbers I asked?" "We do." "Two undecideds flipped after your presentation. One said he couldn't believe Nathaniel signed off on this." "He didn't," I said. "He just didn't stop it." Caroline studied me. "You could have leaked everything. Gone public." "I don't want to destroy Dover Axis," I said. "I just want it to remember what it was built on." She nodded, closed her notes. "We'll want you in the room." Back at my desk, I checked my inbox. One message stood out. Subject client concern. Escalation request. From Vanessa H. Client success. "Hi, Tessa just got off the phone with client Delta. They're reporting instability with the dashboard. No overnight sync. They've reached out twice this week, no clear answers. Any insight?" I felt a chill. Delta was one of our oldest accounts, one I personally brought in when we were scraping by to make payroll. Losing them wouldn't just be bad. It would be a signal to every client still watching. Sure enough, 3 sync failures in 4 days. All traced to a patch Chloe's team had pushed live. No QA, no rollback, no escalation plan. They assumed no one would notice. But clients always notice. I called Vanessa directly. "Can you get me 10 minutes with Delta's lead?" I asked. "Already booked," she said. "They requested you specifically." Of course they did. At 1:58 p.m., I closed my office door. At exactly 2:00, I was on Zoom with Delta's head of operations. "Thanks for joining," he said, voice clipped. "I'll be direct. If this isn't fixed by Friday, we're pulling our contract." I didn't flinch. "You're right to be frustrated," I said. "And I'll take full responsibility for stabilizing the system. You're not even listed on the current leadership roster." I looked him in the eye. "And yet, here I am." He paused. "We don't want to leave," he said finally. "We just want what we were promised." "You'll have it." After the call, I rolled back Chloe's patch and restored the sync tool I'd built myself back when Dover Axis ran lean. The logs lit up green, fast, clean, no errors, system restored. By Thursday morning, word had spread. The client stayed. The crisis was over. And I was the one who fixed it. Ryan passed my desk with coffee in hand. "You just bought us time." "Not time," I said. "Breathing room." I opened a new doc advisory proposal. Foundation model. A real transition plan. Built on systems history and reality, not slogans. Later that afternoon, a knock on my door. Nathaniel. He looked exhausted, the kind of tired you get from watching something fall apart and realizing it's too late to stop it. "Can we talk?" he asked. I gestured to the chair across from me. He sat, hands folded. "I spoke to Chloe," he said. "She's stepping back voluntarily." I raised an eyebrow. "She wanted to prove herself. She thought you were in the way." "I wasn't," I said quietly. "I was the foundation." He nodded slowly, saying nothing. Because he finally knew I was right. "She wanted to prove herself," Nathaniel said quietly. "She thought you were in the way?" "I wasn't," I replied. "I was the foundation." He nodded. "I know that now." Silence followed, long and heavy. "I'm sorry, Tessa," he said. "Truly." "I believe you," I said. "But the apology is for me. The accountability that's for the board." He didn't argue, just nodded. Once, stood and left. That night I stayed late, reviewed legacy systems, cleaned up permissions, forwarded critical documentation to Caroline's assistant. I wasn't building a case anymore. I was stabilizing a company. Because leadership isn't about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about being the one who's still standing when the noise dies down. And on Friday, they would vote, not on the most inspiring speech, but on who kept the lights on. Friday morning arrived with a strange quiet, not silence control, the kind of hush that settles in right before change. Everyone knew what was coming. No one said it, but the looks said enough. I arrived early. My badge still worked. My name was still in the system. No one looked at me with pity anymore. They looked at me with something else. Recognition. The boardroom was full when I entered. Caroline sat at the head, calm and composed. Nathaniel was there too, flanked by two external consultants. His face was unreadable, but his posture said everything. Chloe arrived 5 minutes late. No designer tote, no social media smile, just a gray blazer, pulled back hair, and a face trying to appear unfazed. Caroline opened without small talk. "We're here to finalize leadership oversight decisions following recent instability," she said, scanning the room. Then she turned to me. "Tessa, would you like to say a few words before we vote?" I stood slowly. "I'm not here to claim credit," I said. "I'm here to protect what we built. Dover Axis isn't just a brand. It's a structure, a system, a promise. And lately, that promise has been pulled thin." I paused and let the weight of those words settle. "Leadership isn't disruption for headlines," I said. "It's making sure that when things fall, they don't collapse." Then I sat down. Daniel Renier, seated near the end of the table, gave a small nod. The kind of nod that comes from years of quiet observation. "Our position hasn't changed," he said. "If the current transition plan remains, our partnership won't." Nathaniel flinched but stayed silent. Chloe's hands trembled slightly on the tabletop. Still, no words. Caroline turned to the board. "All in favor of removing Chloe Barron from all leadership duties effective immediately." Hands rose, one by one, no hesitation. All in favor of instating Tessa Lynn as Transitional Systems Advisor with full operational veto. Again, unanimous. Chloe looked down. The only sound was Caroline's pen as it signed the motion into record. Afterward, most left quietly. No congratulations, just a building finally exhaling. Chloe stayed behind. She didn't cry or argue, just stood at the window staring out. "I thought I could handle it," she said softly. "I thought new ideas were enough." I joined her, but said nothing. "You probably hate me." "I don't," I said. "I just wish you'd asked before trying to erase what you didn't understand." She nodded once, then walked out. Her heels echoed in a room that suddenly felt much bigger. Over the next 2 weeks, the real work began. I met with engineering ops, legal, and client services. Not to rebuild everything, just to stabilize what mattered. Dover Axis didn't need reinvention. It needed memory, precision, strength. I brought Ryan in to lead systems continuity. Vanessa stepped into client transition oversight. And the ones who used to be overlooked now, they were leading, because they'd earned it. One evening, I stayed late studying a photo of an old whiteboard sketch from 2019. My handwriting. Still valid. That's the thing about solid architecture, it doesn't expire. It adapts. Later that night, a message came from Caroline. Subject, "Just so you know, 3 of our legacy clients called. Whatever changed, they noticed. And they're relieved." "That's you, Tessa." I stared at it, not smiling, just breathing. They flew me out thinking it was my farewell. But they forgot you can't build the future if you don't understand the foundation. And I built it. Quietly. Permanently. If you've made it this far, thank you for walking through this story with me. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been overlooked, silently replaced, or watched someone less qualified get handed what you built from the ground up? Leave a comment. Tell me what you would have done. Tell me if you think I handled it with too much grace or just enough. And if you've ever had to reclaim your worth quietly, I want to read your story. Because this isn't just about corporate politics. It's about identity, legacy, and knowing what value really means. For anyone out there going through something similar, Here's my advice. Document everything. Don't just build systems, own them. Know your worth not because someone hands it to you, but because you built it line by line, choice by choice. And remember, the loudest voice in the room isn't always the strongest. Sometimes, the person who keeps showing up, who holds the structure together, while others chase buzzwords, that person is the one holding real power. In the end, I didn't need a title to be valuable. I didn't need to trend to be trusted. I just needed the truth, and I needed to stand still long enough for others to finally see it. If this story made you feel something, anger, pride, justice, hit the like button so others see it too. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. Stories that give voice to people like us, the ones who build quietly and lead without shouting. Because the foundation matters. And if you're still here reading this, you are part of that foundation. Let's keep building. Together.